Because if you need a property in downtown, which is what this chart is looking at, your C01 and C08 areas that I illustrated over here, you can see that we're basically at an average of $685,000. And that is the same thing as basically in 2019 pricing right here. You can see that. So we have reverted back down to that average price in 2019. Can it go down some more? Yeah, absolutely. But do you want to commute for some duration before you have to buy? You could also wait it out, but this is what I'm saying. It's a lifestyle decision that you have to make. Because if you're looking at this chart over here, you can see that anything where the condo market has been under this line over here, it means prices have been going down. But you can see over here, since August 2022, condo prices have been coming down and they likely will continue going down. This is why we've been telling a lot of our first-time buyers, you should budget for a little bit of wiggle room on that seller and find the right price so that you feel comfortable staying in there for the next little bit, especially if you want to walk to the office. With more workers being called back to the office, downtown demand is expected to rise, which means these low condo prices may not be around forever. So if you've been thinking about moving downtown, now is the time to pay attention. Stick around to see which Toronto condo areas are most likely to be impacted and how buyers can best navigate this shift. Hi, my name is Zen. If you enjoy my data-driven and number-crunching real estate updates, be sure to like and subscribe. How Toronto's return to office mandates could reshape the housing market. The easiest way to understand this is what the pandemic caused, where there was an outflow of people from the city, could be the inflow back into the city, unless you have the ability to stay at home and you really want to stay at home. And your largest impacted areas when people return to work will obviously be in the downtown core. So in Toronto real estate lingo, we call this actually the C01 area and the C08, which is basically south of Bloor, between the Don Valley and effectively Dufferin and the lakefront. So the question becomes just how quickly is this return to office trend going to bring us back to the pre-pandemic trends? And this chart here talks about the occupancy of offices. And you can see right now, on average, you're looking at 78%. So we're like 4/5 or 80% of where we were pre-pandemic. Now they say the peak day is 88% occupied, which is a Wednesday. And I can anecdotally tell you that is true. I feel like Wednesdays are the worst traffic, and the low day being Friday, which is about 51%. Now here's another interesting chart, and I'm interpreting it a little bit differently. So this is a chart that talks about the return of foot traffic in the downtown cores as a percentage change of January 2020. So basically before the pandemic. And you can see right now, Toronto is about half of the foot traffic, call it, of where it once was before the pandemic. And the reason why I think the foot traffic metric is different from the office occupancy metric is this. The foot traffic is a better representation of who is living downtown, because if you're living downtown, you generally don't have a car and you're moving around by foot more. Because if you look at the metric for the office, that could just be a commute of to and from the office from your current home for people who are working downtown. So if we're looking at this foot traffic data, my question I'm always asking about how does it relate to condo prices and condo sales is, at what point are we going to return back to 0%, and if we ever are going to? So I pulled up some data for us to kind of look at what the trends look like right now. So you can see the first thing is that you're going to get an increase and a surge of people coming back for public service workers in Ontario. And they are basically going back to work January 5th, which is a lot of people because if you remember, a lot of the hiring lately has been government workers. And then you also have TD this fall is mandating 4 days a week. And I can anecdotally tell you, I have clients that work at RBC that have told me they are trying to go back to the office right now in downtown, but there's just not enough offices for RBC employees to go back. So you can see there are more people that are going to be coming back to the office. And you can see already right now, as of July 2025, this is the TDC data and the ridership. And you can see that it's already up 7% from last year, which really tells me that most people who are using the TDC are for commute purposes, and they're increasing that ridership because there's a demand to go back. And based on TDC's data, they're at about 81% pre-pandemic level. Now, do keep in mind, TDC services Toronto, so this may not count homeowners who have moved outside the Toronto areas, so call it your York regions, your Durham regions, your Peel regions, or even like your Simcoe regions. So to get an understanding of how many people are commuting from the suburbs, it's actually best to look at Metrolinx data for Go Ridership, because that's what a lot of people are using as a form of transit back into the city. So this is the Metrolinx data over here. This is part of the annual report. And you can see right now that the ridership has increased to 71.8 million, which represents a 94.1% recovery prior to the pandemic. So they're off by like 6%. So just by looking at that two data, you could see that there's a large amount of people commuting from out of Toronto, from the suburbs back into the city, because they're at basically 6% lower than pre-pandemic levels, which is pretty significant. And keep in mind, this is data before fall, where a lot of people are returning, and in January, when a lot of the Ontario workers are returning as well. So why is all of this data important? It's because I'm trying to calculate how much of a, call it, return to demand there is going to be for the Toronto condos right now. So this chart right here, I've actually pulled all the data for 3 years particularly. One, the dotted white line over here being 2025, so currently. And that represents how many people have returned to the office from, call it, the previous years. The orange line that you have over here is 2023, which is post height of the market in 2022, where most of the buys were end users, to show you as a percentage of how many people are buying condos. And then the blue line over here is 2019. And the reason why I use 2019 is because this was pre-pandemic, which means there's a combination of end users and investors. And like I've always been saying, 2019 was the most balanced market I can remember in the last decade. So you can see over here, 2023 was actually a decent year for condos because anecdotally, I can tell you, we work with a lot of first-time buyers where the rates were low, they got rate holds, and they're still able to buy condos at prices at the time that made sense to them. And in 2019, you can see this line over here is a combination of investors and end users. And even in those years, you're hovering around like 18 to 20% of condos as a percentage of homes sold. Now, do keep in mind, this subset of data is strictly for Toronto. I'm not including GTA as a whole. Now, when you look at 2025, when it's very obvious investors do not want to come back into the condo market, if anything, they want out, and the only people who are buying are end users, you can see that the share of condo as a percentage of homes that are selling has dropped down to 16%. And it has upticked in the last little bit, which is what I've been saying in the past videos. Now, this uptick doesn't mean the condo market is rebounding by any means, but the reason why I'm showing you this is because if we do have a return to office, we're very likely to see a higher demand for condos, which could have the sales increase some more as a percentage of property sold. And the only way that we can see condo prices increasing is if we get back to a balanced market where we have less inventory. So we need this return to office to absorb some of this excess condo inventory for prices to go up. But the question is just how much inventory can be absorbed with this return to office? And my answer for you would be not that much. Because while I am talking to a lot of people and a lot of people are going back to the office right now, not all of them are saying, I need to buy a condo because I am going back to the office. Most of the people I've spoken to, while they may need to come to the office, they're trying to find another job and work remotely again. And I think this trend is going to continue until a lot of remote jobs are completely wiped out. But if you are being called back to office and you want to return back to the office and you like your job, which is kind of like a Venn diagram of multiple things, it does make sense to buy a condo so that you can come back and have the downtown walkable lifestyle. Because this is a lifestyle choice. You don't have to time the bottom of whatever their main reason is, because people, when life changes, such as having to relocate for a job in this case, they do buy properties. Quick sidebar, if you're buying but not sure where to start or what's even a good deal, just hit the link in the description below, tell me what you're looking at, and I'll break it all down for you. No fluff, no BS, just real talk from a human and not just another chatbot. Because if you need a property in downtown, which is what this chart is looking at, your C01 and C08 areas that I illustrated over here, you can see that we're basically at an average of $685,000. And that is the same thing as basically in 2019 pricing right here. You can see that. So we have reverted back down to that average price in 2019. Can it go down some more? Yeah, absolutely. But do you want to commute for some duration before you have to buy? You could also wait it out, but this is what I'm saying. It's a lifestyle decision that you have to make. Because if you're looking at this chart over here, you can see that anything where the condo market has been under this line over here, it means prices have been going down. But you can see over here, since August 2022, condo prices have been coming down and they likely will continue going down. This is why we've been telling a lot of our first-time buyers, you should budget for a little bit of wiggle room on that seller and find the right price so that you feel comfortable staying in there for the next little bit, especially if you want to walk to the office. Because at some point in the future, not 1 year or not 2 years, not 3 years, and not even 5 years, maybe a little bit more than that, I don't have the answer, but you can very much see that we are going into an area where there's going to be less and less condos for people to buy. So you can see the number of completions coming down. Keep in mind, I know a lot of people are putting this chart out there saying, hey, you should buy a condo right now because there's not enough. No, that's not the case. I'm saying, hey, maybe in like 2029, when we stop building them and stop having completions of them, and then maybe we won't have enough people selling these condos that we may have some shortage. This is what I'm saying, maybe 5 years out. But the reason why I showed you this chart is not because I want you to buy a condo right now because the price is going to go up. No, it's the trend that I have been seeing, I have been saying for a very long time. This chart adds in the purpose-built rental, which right now is a very hot product for a lot of people with money to go into, or a lot of condo developers that can't get the numbers to work to convert them into purpose-built rental. And you can see this bar over here is showing that how many of these purpose-built rentals are going to be coming online. And there's going to be more and more of them because CMHC, the Crown Mortgage Corporation, is providing them cheap financing to build these things. Do you know that saying where they say you will own nothing and be happy? We are going into that type of reality maybe in like 10 years. We're not there yet right now, but the ability for you to own, even if it's like a shoebox in the sky in this condominium over here, is going to get lower and lower because we're just not building them right now because the economics don't make sense. Now, can the economics make sense if builders drop their price, like I said in the last video? Absolutely. But you just have to remember, there's like a 5 to 6 year lag between starting a project and completing it. So in that little gap, we may have a little bit of shortage. I just don't know when that gap will start. But I do have some data that points to how cheap condos are right now, where you can buy a condo for $350,000 in the core of Toronto. Is it a condo that makes sense? Maybe. This is exactly what I talk about in this video that's on the screen right now. So make sure you click on that. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya.